Well, it's good to be back in the shop. I was down for the weekend with Rona, which, let me tell you, this is the second time around for me. The first time was like really long and drawn out. This time was just like 2 days of like, oh, crazy fever, right? But it passed. I'm over it. Now Al over here, Al's working on the car. He's got it now. So I don't know how long I'll be able to stick around. But, you know, just updates on Slaghammer. Al, you're going to be covering the updates on the car on your channel.
Correct.
Mopar Al.
Correct.
Right, so if you guys haven't subscribed to Mopar Al yet, go subscribe to Mopar Al now. And the car, you can see, it's coming along beautifully. Right? One other thing before I get into all of that. Comments, I read these comments. Some of you people are absolutely deranged, okay? We did the battery revival video. And then I did the update last week before I got sick. And I filmed the update with my phone. That's why the quality is bad as it is, because Kathy was down with the Rona. So I filmed that update with the phone. I get all kinds of people accusing me of swapping out batteries. Like as if I had a vested interest in whether it worked or not. It was an experiment. The only benefit that I got out of it was that I got a functional battery. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I'm not trying to sell anything. But I actually have people accusing me of swapping batteries. For what it's worth, YouTube, right? If it bleeds, it leads. It's like anything else. I would have gotten more clicks with a battery failure than I got with a battery success. So think of it that way. It's just mind-boggling. But Austin dropped this battery off right here. So we're going to give this one a shot. He claims that this has been laying around for it was dead when he took it out of the car. It's been laying around for 4 or 5 years. It's beyond dead. So we're going to try a revival on this thing later on this week. I don't want to make this the battery revival channel. But it is interesting, and there is a lot of interest in it. So, but one of the reasons I bring up the Rona is because it led to some interesting things. Like I said, a really high fever for a couple of days, which led me to be able to do nothing except like drink orange juice, sit on the couch, and flip through YouTube. And I ended up in this loop, this cycle of these free energy videos, right? The first one that I saw was an alternator. A guy had an alternator and a single-phase motor, and he modified the alternator and tied it up to the single-phase motor so that the alternator was powering the motor was powering the alternator, everything was spinning. He started it with a ripcord, and in my fevered state, right, I have to understand, I'm running like 103 fever, 104 fever, and I'm watching this, and in my fevered state, it's like, well, second law of thermodynamics be damned. That's amazing. It works. And I'm flipping, right? And there's dozens of these videos, okay, of all of these people that there were these like Pakistanis that had this big flywheel hooked up between an alternator and a motor, and they're supposedly running their deal. And I'm binge watching these free energy videos, and I'm like, why didn't I think of that? Why didn't anybody think of that? And then like the fever started to go away. And I was like, oh, nobody ever thought of that because it's asinine. It cannot work. If you bother watching, go through these free energy videos. If you want to laugh, right? Go through these free energy videos. I'm telling you, there's like dozens and dozens of them. And a lot of them are all done by the same guy. It's a couple of different channels, but it's the same guy, and you can tell, but it's because it's all done with his hands up close, and it's all done in such a way like, like this, right? And like this, or like this, and it's all done to draw out time. And you say, well, if it's all fake, then why would people do this? Those videos are getting 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, 5 million views, right? Now, think about it this way. Social blade numbers are idiotic. A 1 million view video is going to be worth someplace between $10,000 and $20,000, depending on the the CPM. So if you've got, let's say, a 3 million view video, that's a minimum 30 grand you're putting in your pocket. You know what? Fake it. So that's what they do. They're like magicians. It's all sleight of hand. These days, with digital video, because this is all digital now. It's easier than ever because you can block certain colors out. Like I could have a big hunkin' BX cable running off the bottom of this thing, but I can digitally eliminate it. You won't see it. So I could pick it up, turn it around, hold it like this, hold it like this. You won't see the cable. You've digitally eliminated it. So it's such an obvious scam. The tip off, the thing that like woke me up out of my, my coma, kind of mental coma state, was that one guy plugs in a drill, right, into this. It's an alternator running a motor, running an alternator, and it's got a power strip, and he plugs the drill into the power strip and hits the button, but nothing slows down. Like there was no draw, there was no drag on the motor. Now, anytime, if you run a generator, you plug anything into it, as soon as you hit it, there's a drag, there's a draw, right? It was overcomes when the motion starts. Well, there was none of that. So I said, obviously, this is not hooked to that. And then there was this one. There's a few versions of these, right? And it's like they keep reaching and going further and further. I just had to show you because you can't believe it unless you actually see it. So what they do is they take these ring magnets like this, okay? So the one guy, he wraps a bolt, right, with wire like this, like a coil, and puts it down like that, okay? And he actually glues it. He uses hot glue to glue the bolt to the magnet with this wire coiled around it, and then he uses it to light a bulb, as if like this is going to create 12 volts, right, or whatever voltage that he's working with. And it's going to light a bulb. I mean, clearly it's obviously not going to work, okay, but that's besides the point. People believe this stuff. They get millions of views. It's absurd, right? The idea of free energy is absurd. And so is this stuff. And this brings us to what I want to talk about today. So we did the vapor system. We did the vapor system test on our Dart. And I got this guy, Michael, from Green Auto Technology. Now, I have to give Michael some credit. I'm going to give him a shout out here, okay? Michael seems to be an extremely friendly, extremely industrious, extremely outgoing person. And whether or not he believes in what he sells, or he even understands what he sells, I don't know. I just don't know. But you can see by the tone of what he writes and everything, and the fact that he's like anxious to send things out to be tested, that he's sincere. He may be completely insane. I don't know. But he's sincere and insane. It's okay. You know what I mean? It doesn't make him a bad person. But this is what happens. I do that test on the vapor system, which obviously didn't work. I mean, I knew it wasn't going to work. Al?
Yes, sir.
Did you think that vapor system was going to work? Was that test that we did as fair as it could possibly be?
About as fair as we can do it. I mean, the only thing, like in the comments and stuff, it's like, well, the vehicle should have been operating temperature. Well, it was before we pulled it out of the garage.
Right. There's a lot of things that people didn't see because, I mean, we couldn't have the video be 45 minutes long of warming up the car and driving it around and doing all this other stuff. So obviously we had to condense and make it concise to make it fit, But you went in without prejudice because you had no knowledge.
Right.
Okay. I don't think we could do that this time. We do that test, and I get a package in the mail from Michael at Green Auto Technology with this random throttle body, just a random throttle body. Can you test this? Test this throttle body. And it has all of these directions, and it has this wave system. And I'm going to talk about this in a minute, right? This is the big modification. It's a groove. It's painted purple, or it's colored purple here, right? That they put in here so that as the throttle blade is closed, the air, or just barely open, the air has to go through this channel or piles up against the channel, whatever it happens to be. Okay, this one's off an '08 Silverado. But I mean, I clearly don't have an '08 Silverado. And I was like, Michael, I don't have anything to test this on, right? So I said, I do carburetors. So I would have thought that would have kind of all right, he'll go away now. But no, he sends me a carburetor. He sends me this Holley carburetor. And this Holley carburetor, and it's off of a 1966 327 275 horse Chevy, okay? And it's you see, they've made the modification here. Here's the groove. Can you see that? Okay. And this is supposed to increase gas mileage somehow. Okay. Well, I'm gonna explain to you the theory behind it in a minute. It's actually something you've already heard about. I'm sure you've heard about it. The carburetor, I don't even know if this thing is really testable. I mean, the throttle blades are like, it's not, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's not really the most functional piece that anybody's ever sent me. I have no idea what the internals are like. It looks like he just blasted this thing really quick to get it clean, and then wrote all of this stuff on it and then sent it. I mean, I could lubricate this up and give it a shot. But what these grooves are about here, and this ties into this whole free energy thing, because not that this is free energy, but it's like the thing that nobody thought of, right? Let's go back to the green energy thing for 1 second. The free energy thing, okay? The free energy thing. I'm not saying free energy is impossible. I'm sure it actually is possible. But it is not possible using any combination of parts or technologies that currently exist in our world. You would have to get like Bob Lazar and element 151 or whatever it happens to be and work from a foundation of that to actually create a free energy situation. But there is no combination of things like a ring magnet, a bolt, and a spool of wire that's going to create electricity. Not going to happen, right? Can happen at some time in the future. Well, it's the same thing with this stuff here, this groove. So this, I first became aware of the groove thing. This is called the Gadget Man groove, okay? And when I saw this, I was like, that is the most absolutely absurd thing I've ever seen. So what I was introduced to this when I first saw it was about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and there was a video of this guy, this Gadget Man, and he's got a whiteboard, you know, he's making a whiteboard presentation, and he's showing that the air comes in under the throttle plate and it hits the groove and it turns into a ball, like a little like tornado of concentrated air, and then it's shot through the intake into the open waiting intake valve to meet the piston at 90 degrees past top dead center of the intakes, and it supercharges the motor and gives you all sorts of these crazy benefits. And I'm like, has this guy never heard of sonic pulses? Does he have any clue at all what happens in the runner of an intake manifold? Or obviously not, because he's only acquainted with the vacuum that you feel, let's say, over the top of a carburetor or over a plenum, the manifold. Well, you'll feel a steady vacuum. But that is not what's happening in the runners. There are waves going back and forth that would completely negate, absolutely negate, anything that happens immediately past the throttle blade, which is where this groove is. And obviously, once your throttle is open and you're past that air, that point where the air is being forced into that groove, well, our air travels like a liquid. It has the same characteristics as a liquid. So it's just going to go over it. It's just like a divot. It's just going to go over it if nothing's directing it to it. So this modification, if it was to work at all, would only work at idle or even just the tiniest throttle openings. But that's besides the point. That super concentrated, uniform ball of air is going to be completely broken up and disrupted as soon as it meets the sonic pulses that are running back and forth in the intake runner. Do I have to explain this anymore? Your car guys, you kind of understand this. This stuff is targeted at people who don't understand. And just like the free energy guys, they get millions of views by people who just don't understand. They're not sophisticated enough. You and I are sophisticated enough to see how this is nonsense. And I feel bad calling it nonsense because Michael seems like a nice guy. And I don't want to bust Michael's dreams. And I also want to be a man of my word, and I want to test this. This is where I need you guys, right? Tell me how I can do an impartial test on this, because I really don't know how I can do an impartial test on this. Putting on a dyno was out, right? But here's our car right here. We're going to use our GT. This is our designated test car. I mean, this is the battery mule. It's the vapor system mule. So now it's going to be the Gadget Man Groove Green Auto Technologies Chevy Holly Carburetor test car. So tell me how I should do this. I'll go through the comments. Although these days, it's like almost I'm afraid to go through the comments. You guys are making me afraid to go through the freaking comments. But I'll go through and like, let's see what's the best suggestion as to how this thing should be tested. Or should we not test it at all and just send it back to them and say, thank you for the opportunity, but you know, we're going to have to pass on this? Because there's no way I can do an impartial test going in knowing how bad this is. And then here's the icing on the cake. Here's the icing on the cake. And I'm going to save this for a video that we're doing tomorrow. I'm going to do this video tomorrow. Okay, I'm going to do this video tomorrow because this is important and it applies to like all engines, right? This is something that comes, some of the literature, God, I can't even wrap my head around this. So, this is a must-do when installing the wave, right? Okay, this is the wave, right? The groove, the wave. Suppressed knowledge of the PCV system. This is the secret, the suppressed knowledge of the PCV system. Let me tell you something, okay? I am one of the world's greatest PCV system advocates, right? Only people who don't understand what's happening in the crankcase or what an engine running without a PCV valve. You know, you have to be my age. You have to be like my age and have dealt with engines pre-PCV. You know, engines from the 1950s, the early 1960s, when you pull them out of junkyards, you can't imagine what the inside of these motors look like. The PCV valve single-handedly, I believe, doubled the life expectancy of the typical engine, where it went from like 80 to 100,000 miles to 150,000, 200,000 miles in the 1970s and the 1980s. The PCV valve was a big contributor to the extended life of the internal combustion engine. But this is exactly what comes with it. This is the mentality. This is what you're dealing with, right? The suppressed knowledge of the PCV system. It's like the Illuminati uses the PCV system to make mankind subjugate and lizard people. I don't know. What do you think, Al?
People have their ideas.
They do. All right. So that's it. I'm gonna leave it at that. I'll watch the comments and see how the hell we should test this thing over here. And tomorrow I'm gonna do a whole in-depth video on the PCV system and the hows, whys, the positives and negatives and all that other stuff. And I hope you got something out of that. I'll see you tomorrow.